the visceral combat in D3 is certainly the foundation of our combat model for D4. So when we think about that model, we looked at, well, where are things where we want to adjust from that sort of baseline? And so we wanted to make combat feel a little bit more intentional, add a little bit more stakes, and increase the clarity of the battlefield so that you feel like you can see, because if you can't see what decisions you're making or what monsters are doing, then it's hard to feel like you're making important decisions. You have to get that feedback, right? You know, it's been really useful to have beta tests, alpha tests, that allow us to really dial in that that threshold where the combat doesn't feel so slow that it's not capturing that feeling of momentum and that power fantasy and being a barbarian and jumping on demons and throwing them off cliffs. But that you feel like you have some stakes and that you're making decisions that matter on the battlefield. They're tactical decisions. We've got the evade skill that factors into that, so you can move around the battlefield. You know that you have that available. We can design mechanics and boss encounters and things that use that mechanic. And we feel like we've got it in a pretty good spot at this point. It's feeling fast. It's feeling like there's momentum. But there's still choices, and we're continuing to dial that in as we get closer to launch.
I think part of it is like it feels more grounded, right? Like one of the things you don't see are the blue, you know, of the sort of there's like the champion color code and the elite color code. Like they're not glowing yellow or glowing blue. Like everything's sort of grounded in the world, and so I think it feels different in that way, that it feels more grounded. Even the visual effects like that they've done is they feel a little less high fantasy and a little bit more kind of realistic and in the world, and especially the elemental stuff. And so I think that adds to a certain feel. But as a non-designer, I find it really, listening to the conversations, you know, things like time to kill is really interesting to me. The notion of, okay, in this beta, it took this long to kill these many monsters, and that feels too slow, and so we've made these adjustments, and now our time to kill is this, and so in my mind, Joe's back there with a dial going like, turn it up, turn it down until we find it right. But it's been something that is a constant conversation around, because Diablo is a power fantasy, and so if it feels too arduous and too slow and too laborious, they feel like, oh, they're just meat sacks of hit points, and it's not fun to kill things. And if they're too fast, then you're just like, everything's made of paper, and it doesn't matter. My strength doesn't matter. And so it really is about dialing it in to finding where you go, like, that should be challenging, that should be threatening, but I should also feel really strong in this moment or against this type of enemy. And so that's what Joe and the system teams have been doing a great job of finding that sort of sweet spot in the game.
Yeah, you know, you mentioned how elites in Diablo IV don't have a color coding. It's been really interesting for us to identify areas where we can ground the monsters more in the world, and then also identify where there are things where it's really important to have clear communication, right? So, for example, there was a point where when monsters were hiding behind a doorway or a pillar or something, it's certainly more grounded to not have any information about that. But it also turns out to be very frustrating. And so, you know, we've you know, speaking to that, kind of dialing it in, figuring out, you know, where we need to do monster highlighting for clarity so that the player has battlefield information to know what kind of decisions to make, and where we need to ground the monsters in the world so you get that feeling of atmosphere. You feel like you're in a world that's dangerous and scary, and there's unpredictability. We've done a lot of work on our world map, right? Like, we really had to define how the world map works for the first time with Diablo IV, you know, because it is an open world with all of these activities you can get to. It needs to effectively show you all of these cool things you can do without turning into a task list of like, well, I guess I got to do this. There are 30 flags. I guess I got to do all 30 of these flags here. You know, so really finding that balance, and also making sure that we're communicating important things about the world, like, well, there's a mountain range that runs between these two areas. It's really important that the player knows that, so they're not like, running along the coast, like, how do I get down here, you know? And that needs to come through on the map. So we've done a lot of iteration on how the map can show all the exciting things that you can do, making sure that the map isn't just turning into a checklist, and also the visual design of the map in terms of like being consistent with the overall art design of the world and having that kind of aspect of like an old map that it feels like a part of the world's fantasy, but still is accurate and useful the way that you would expect maps to be in the modern day.
Right. Even has a GPS system.
Yes.
I guess that's the next level.
Huh?
The next level of the game.
We're in a game?
Yes, Grandpa Eddie, we are in a game.
You can't be serious.
The big thing I think is worth clarifying is around the story is that, you know, one of the concerns about sort of putting open world in a big neon sign and flashing that sign is that people have that notion of the Breath of the Wild kind of, it's completely organic and I can go anywhere and do anything and eventually I can figure it out for that's not really our story, right? Our story allows for non-linearity, but there is a story. We wanted to have a beginning, middle, and end. We wanted to start at a certain place. We wanted to end at a certain place. And so it's more of a branching story, and you can choose kind of what order you want to play the branches. And so there's a pretty quick early decision on, once you get past the prologue, of I actually want to go start Act 3 first. And I want to play all the Act 3 story before then I go play Act 1, and then I go play Act 2. And so if I replay the story, I can go and do now Act 2 first versus Act 3 versus Act 1. So there's sort of branches and come back, branches and come back, versus this like just it's all over the place and you can kind of, and so that's, I think it's worth clarifying that's kind of, when we talk about sort of the freedom of choice around the story, it's really those sorts of things. You can actually not pursue the story for a while, and that's the nice thing about the open world is like there's a lot of side quests, there's a lot of things in the world that you can go and do that aren't on the campaign sort of golden path. And the fact is just like the golden path is a branching path that you can decide when you want to do those branches and in what order. The thing that we really clued in on was like this notion, sort of, when we were trying to figure out how best to talk about it, there's like every inch is built for combat was kind of a phrase that came to mind, which is like, that was really how it was designed. We didn't design an open world where it was like, oh, we expect a lot of travel here and we need you to do a lot of downtime here, go play poker over here and go fishing over here. Like, it was really about, we wanted to have that, basically anywhere in the open world, you could stop, a monster could attack you and you could fight there, right? And so having, when you're working at a density that allows for that, that's a different type of open world, that at any moment in any place you could have a fight. And so that kind of changed how we thought about the design and how you move between the zones and how all that stuff plays out. So that's really it's kind of calibrated for action in terms of the open world.
Yeah, in fact, at one point it was too dense. And so we dialed it back a little bit. You know, we didn't want to have an experience where you were sort of riding through miles of empty terrain to get to cool stuff. We wanted to have all of the world have exciting and interesting things to do. So if you go into, if you decide to do Act 3 first, you know, maybe you're playing through the campaign a second time, and this time you wanted to do Act 3 the first, you're going to have different experiences. It's going to be a little bit more challenging, and you're going to be playing through in a different area of the world and seeing strongholds, seeing all of the open world features there. And as you're going through it, there's lots of stuff to do, whether you're mounted or you're riding or you're navigating through on foot. But when we actually had so much stuff that getting through it on a mount was challenging, and so we had to say, like, okay, let's make sure that the roads actually are connect to good places and are a good way to travel through this area, so that you can get to places that you're going expediently, and also have the opportunity to go off the path and see interesting things.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that really, like, with the renown system, that ability to sort of, like, plays into each zone where you can go and you're going exploring, looking for hidden caches, and you're going and completing certain side quests, you're looking for certain strongholds, to sort of say, okay, this zone's done, and I get benefits of that. Of, okay, I'm going to get skill points that I can actually on my alt, I can automatically start with 6 skill points, and so I've sort of accelerated my alt progression. But I think that's part of the open world we wanted was, again, as we think about choice, whether it be choice of class and choice of how you look and choice of your skills and choice of your paragon, like that ability to, whether you turn left, turn right, turn around, that's all up to you. And so you can kind of go and explore the world and go after those, what's most important. Do I want to go and do dungeons? Am I going to do world events? Am I going to go do local events? Am I taking on a world boss? Am I, and so that sort of notion of having the freedom of choice, but still having that sort of directionality is really, I think is really important. And that's something when working on Gears 5, we added a sort of bowls, like large bowls that were pseudo open world in Gears 5. And we met with a bunch of open world designers, people who worked on Red Dead, people who worked on Tomb Raider. And they always said like it's a little bit of an illusion, is that people want to have, they say they want open world and free choice, but they also want to be told where to go. And so that was when they talked about in Tomb Raider, is that when there's like a road and the road would end, but if you went straight, you would go to where they want you to, but the world was open to you. But you knew if you went straight, that would be the path. And so that's kind of, in some ways, our story is that guidepost. Like, where the campaign wants you to go and where the campaign, you always have a place to come home. Like, you always know, oh, if I go off going crazy for a while and I go and do strongholds and events and open world exploration and da-da-da, at the end of the day, you go like, okay, I've been doing this for a while. What am I? Okay, quests. Okay, that's where I have to go in the campaign, and I can get back on the rail and know where to get back on the storyline and go back to doing that. And so, to me, it's a great mixture of that notion of like playing through a story, but also having the ability to go wherever you want, whenever you want.
Who's in charge? It's the takeover.
They call me FLACKO and don't play no role. You bandana on my ain't no sleeves up on my
I'd rather put money on my grandmother.
I ain't got the bullet fever. I ain't duck sauce since I've been vegan. Joke season. Try to pay before the season. Probably ducked off in a quiet place. Switching busy. Crowd of shades. Probably white. Couldn't see him.
And you driving like you stole it. I like your style.
I would like that change. To the skull on my face. All the stones in the clothes. Where's your skull face?
That's how you do it? See, I was rooting for you too, man. You made me proud.
Welcome to Wanted Dead, a brand new intellectual property from 110 Industries, a AAA love letter to the 6th generation of video game consoles.
Okay, start. Lock and load.
The game follows a week in the life of the Zombie Unit, an elite Hong Kong police squad on a mission to uncover a major corporate conspiracy.
Okay, lock and load.
The skill tree gives you a clear sense of direction and makes it easier for you to cater to your own playstyle. Make no mistake, you will need to unlock all skills to successfully progress through the game.
I don't think anyone would mind taking a little souvenir. Is that all of them?
Don't. Enemy troops.
wait to get back and hit the
Stone,
shower.
enemy troops.
Vivian?
Gunsmith here. Just in time to resupply your ammo. I'll also be monitoring and recording your...
got you covered. Can you get a lock on?
Oh, good. The signal shit.
It's that. It's equipped with the jammer.
That's so. I'll take care of it.
Now's your time to approach.
Jammer's down.
I've got a lock. Firing!
只要我心不散，大唐就不会亡。那就再唱下去吧。到底是人活进了戏里，还是戏本就因人而在？为何执意要挟，并无可止火？这把剑，我本不想沾血。且让你们体会杀戮之苦。你来了。
戏还没演完吗？糖已经灭了。天下易主，旧姓不存，你还能为何而战？
大唐之命系于4年，人在则唐不灭。
天下是苍生的天下，梁还是唐，这2个字重要吗？
大唐福泽万年，逆贼杀戮无道，如何相提并论？
一将功成万骨枯，总有人要在阴影里背负罪孽。你那戏里的唐，真是你心中所念的唐吗？
戏仍未终了，而戏中之人早已不知你我。
Swans, which is the secret, not so secret dueling club is that the students have put together. Professors definitely know about it, but they think they're being clever. And it's run by this Lucan Brattleby here,
who's in a younger year, but we kind of like that that he's running things.
Hello, Lucan. May I use the training dummy?
Of course. I'll fetch it and give you a list of combinations to practice. Ready to have a try now?
That would be wonderful.
Be sure to cast all your spells before the dummy lands. If you need to stop practicing before you finish all of them, let me know.
And this is a really good opportunity to now jump into combat, because really in the game this is going to be the first time where you yourself get to learn about combat and combos in a big way and in a new way. For me personally, this was where the game like really starts to open up to the possibilities.
Yeah. So we've set up a training dummy, and this is kind of an activity where you're supposed to execute according to kind of the iconography on the top. Now, what we see on the top is the Accio spell, followed by 4 what we just kind of lovingly refer to as basic shots. There are certain spells what the wizards kind of like use, just kind of fling. Andrew's using one now. And you trigger that by tapping R2 on your controller. So you can see in the corner R2. So if you tap R2, that throws out a basic shot. But that R2 is also your gateway to all of the spells that you might slot. So if you hold R2 instead, you can see how the diamond expands. And if we let go, you see how it contracts? Yeah. And so if you hold it again, it expands. And so when it expands, then all the spells that you slotted while you're holding that button can now be tapped with your face buttons.
Awesome.
And not only that, but over the course of the game, you can gain additional spell diamonds, up to 4 additional ones, so that you can slot up to 16 spells, pretty much instantly. And then that helped us fulfill the fantasy of in combat, I need to be able to access things very rapidly. Yeah. And so you learn over the course of these events, how to juggle not just the spell casting, but also it reinforces an understanding of another feature of the wheel, which is their cooldowns. So as you're casting spells, just to make sure that you're not just kind of like repeatedly using one thing over and over and over again, you can see cooldowns on the spells that he's using on the wheel. And then as you progress through the game, there are different things that can affect things, like cooldowns through your talents, different things that allow you to kind of like juggle and adjust and update those things. And so if you hold down R2 and you tap the D-pad, it will switch between your other diamonds if you've unlocked them, and that's how you access all those.
Oh, man. It looks like we're about to get some action over here.
Yeah. So this is a great way to kind of learn how to pull things together,
so you
pull those combos together.
Here. Yeah. Tap, Accio, tap, tap, tap. Awesome.
Well done,
Andrew.
And that's just against the dummy, but I mean...
I'd say that's enough practice. You looked good out there.
Thank you, Lucan.
I say better to discover one's weaknesses during practice than during a duel. You'll be a fearsome challenger now.
I think now we can take on something a little more challenging. It's going to shoot back.
Now let's talk about some more features of the combat system.
Hello, Lucan. Is the next round of crossed wands all set?
Why, yes it is. I've got a great match lined up. Ready for another round?
We're on a PS5 dev kit here, so we're going to be able to kind of pause the action and talk about what you're seeing on the screen, because there's about to be a lot going on.
Okay.
All right, here you can select if you want to fight with somebody else, some of your classmates. But in this case, we're not. We want that action to feel a little more frantic towards you to really get you that sense of combat.
So apparently you've got quite the reputation because they've got you up against 3 people.
3, off the jump.
So I can explain this just because I know people are going to go into it, but we can probably just kind of jump in. So you're not the only one that has Protego and the ability to deflect. The enemies do too. And we actually play with that when it comes to the spell casting. So you notice that there are different colored kind of shields around the different characters. And you also notice that your spells have different colors on them. So to help players understand kind of like the function of their spells, we're trying to put them into brackets. So there are damage spells, there are force spells, there are, I'm forgetting the other one, all this control spells. And so those things for the player, they wind up also being a color indicator for which actual spell to use to break the different shields that enemies can use. That way it rewards kind of like that close attention that you're paying on things.
We've got this paused here now, and you can kind of see all the elements on the screen, the halo around the avatar's head, each of the different shields, to kind of give us a breakdown of what's going on.
Give us a breakdown of different things that you're saying. So you notice at the top that we're kind of like calling out which enemy you currently have targeted and their level and health. And so, as you target different characters, you'll be able to get very great distance.
That's such a good call.
And there are a lot of things that we had to do with our controls and combat system in order to kind of capitalize on that idea. That's pretty unique to the Wizarding world.
Yes. Well, perhaps you should try that next time. The other duelists have already taken notice of you, but after that last round, they'll really have it in for you. You'd better keep practicing if you want a chance at winning, or at least surviving the next round. I'll let you know when we're ready. Hope to see you then.
An alternate Soviet history world full of robots. They're each cleverly grounded in the lore of Atomic Heart, built by Facility 3826 to provide day-to-day help for the population, and definitely not going to try and kill you. Here, we'll be taking a closer look at 4 of the many unique designs that developer Munfish has created for Atomic Heart. One of the earlier models of bipedal civilian robots, the MFU-68, very quickly became a universal assistant in various areas of work. A considerable advantage of this small machine is the simplicity of its design, which allows it to operate in various weather and climatic conditions, move perfectly across rough terrain, and be equipped with a wide range of tools. Originally designed for the delivery of smaller items, veterinary assistance, and grazing livestock, it's equipped with a circular saw blade with a diameter of 40 centimeters, which, combined with an improved polymer battery, results in outstanding logging performance, as well as dismembering any limbs that happen to get caught in its path, I'm sure. The RAF-9 is a friendly and ever-helpful multi-purpose robot that always exceeds the expectations of its creators. This model was developed to help the workers of the assembly shops, designers and architects. The first of its kind, the robot was equipped with high-precision manipulator hands to free people of all kinds of manual labour, and definitely not squeezing too tightly around their necks or anything. The RAF-9 model has a communication module that helps it connect with people in a more natural way. Commonly referred to as Raffic, this robot is widely known and loved, finding its place not just in the workshops, but also in people's homes. It can easily perform the functions of a janitor, electrician, or even a waiter, always being the centre of the public's attention. What's not to trust? The most advanced mass-produced robot of Facility 3826, the VOV-A6 LabTech, or as the scientists nicknamed it, FOBCHIC, is a top-of-the-line robotic assistant. An extremely smart AI with multitasking abilities, these amazing machines even have self-repairing algorithms. They are entrusted with such difficult tasks as assisting in surgery or handling chemicals. Additionally, this robot gets along well with both children and seniors, as it cares for and entertains them. Fun for all the family then. VOV-A6 is in black, or an improved version of the LabTech. These LabTech robots are stronger, faster, and have better precision of movement due to the additional additives to the polymer battery and experimental software. I'm sure this won't be a problem if, for example, they all went rogue for some reason. Proficient in welding and a key tool for the future of high-rise urban planning, the MA9 Belyash is a reflection of nature in robot form. Having carefully studied the skeleton of the chimpanzee, the scientists of Facility 3826 created the MA9 in order to move building materials of up to half a ton in weight. With its distinctive, powerful long limbs, ability to cling onto vertical surfaces, and swing around on construction beams, that primate influence is clear to see.